What's going on, everyone? Chris from Pickdawgz.com here with your college football breakdown for week 4. We're going to be going over 10 college football games for the Saturday action of week 4 college football going down on Saturday, September 21st, 2024. If you like this content, make sure you smash that thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. And if you're looking for my best bets, the games I love the most, including my daily $15 best bet, head on over to Pickdawgz.com and click the Premium Picks tab at the top of the page. Got some marquee games here. Great college football card this weekend from the football on Friday, all day Saturday. We got a couple of ranked versus ranked matchups, some rivalry games, some new rivalries that are taking shape with the conference realignment. Let's not wait any longer to get into it. You guys know the drill. You ready? I'm ready. Let's break it down. Our first game on Saturday sees Iowa State taking on Arkansas State. This one's going down at 2 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Plus. And Iowa State, coming off of the bye week, they're coming off of that win over Iowa in the Cy-Hawk Classic. Maybe helps them avoid the letdown a little bit here, but I'm still not all that sold on this Iowa State offense. Sure, Rocco Becht has been decent for Iowa State in his first couple games, threw for 267 yards against North Dakota, 272 against that solid Iowa defense. But this is still an Iowa State offense that's had issues running the football. This offense has been a little bit one-dimensional. I mean, Iowa State's offense, 118th in rushing yards, 104th in yards per carry. Arkansas State's defense, their strength is defending the pass. So I think Arkansas State can have some success in this matchup. On the other side, that Iowa State defense has been ferocious as per usual. They're top 5 in pass defense. Granted, they haven't necessarily been tested against teams like North Dakota and Iowa, but I still think that, you're going up against, if you're Arkansas State, you're going up against a stacked Iowa State defense. That's going to make life extremely tough for you. Same thing with Arkansas State. They can't necessarily run the football, and they're not even doing all that well in yards per completion, yards per attempt. So for me, I think it's going to be an under all the way, but I also think that 21.5, getting over 3 touchdowns plus the hook, is a decent spot to be in with Arkansas State. I could see a 28-10 win here for Iowa State. So I'm going to take the under 51.5 as my main play, lean towards Arkansas State in the points. Now we head to Ann Arbor for one of the marquee matchups on Saturday, going down at 3:30 p.m. Eastern on CBS. It's Michigan taking on USC, and Michigan announcing that they're going back from Davis Warren back to Alex Orji. And I've always been of the belief with Michigan coming into the season that if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have 1 quarterback, and that's kind of what I think we're dealing with here. I haven't liked what I've seen from Davis Warren. I haven't liked what I've seen from Alex Orji in limited action. And I don't like what they're going to be able to do here against this USC defense that has shown great improvement under DeAnton Lynn. And, we've already seen one quarterback go into Ann Arbor, highly touted program in Quinn Ewers, and absolutely pick apart the Wolverine defense, the highly, touted and vaunted Wolverine defense as well. And I think Miller Moss can have some success as well. He took down what looked to be an improved, LSU defense, threw for 378 yards in that game in their opener. Picked apart Utah State. I know it's not saying a whole lot, but I'm high on Miller Moss. I'm high on this USC team. For me, this looks like one of the more complete USC teams that we have seen from Lincoln Riley in his tenure with the Trojans. I'm going to go with USC. I think they win this one by at least a touchdown. I'm going to go with the Trojans in this one. Now we head to South Bend, where the Notre Dame Fighting Irish take on the Miami, Ohio Redhawks. This one's going down at 3:30 p.m. Eastern on NBC. And obviously, for Notre Dame, you're trying to avoid a second loss to a MAC team this season. And we saw Notre Dame really focus up. I'm not going to lie. I was thinking Purdue might have been the play in that game. It was supposed to be, in air quotes, an in-state rivalry matchup, and Notre Dame didn't treat it as such. They won that game 66-7. Came out with purpose against the Boilermakers, bouncing back from that loss to Northern Illinois the week prior. And he had Marcus Freeman, head coach of Notre Dame, saying we just bought into our own hype. And I think that that's going to be big for Notre Dame going forward. Miami, Ohio was looked at by a lot of folks, myself included, as probably one of the front runners in the MAC this season, mainly because they had a healthy Brett Gabbert back at quarterback. And Gabbert had a decent outing last time out against Cincinnati, 23-35 for 339 yards. But the reality is that this Miami, Ohio offense has not done a whole lot. They're one of the worst rushing teams in the country. Their bread and butter is airing it out. They're a top 30 passing offense through their first 2 games, but you're going up against a top 30 pass defense of the Irish. I just think this is good. This is, the haves versus the have-nots in terms of Notre Dame's offense going up against Miami, Ohio. this should be, a spot where Miami, Ohio just gets run over. And now this line is dipped under 4 touchdowns. I'm fine laying it with Notre Dame here. I think Notre Dame is focused. And like I said, I think they're going to make sure they don't lose to a second MAC team in as many attempts this season. Louisville for an ACC conference matchup between the Cardinals and the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Louisville laying 10.5. Total set at 57.5. This one's going to be at ESPN2 at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. And Georgia Tech had some time to think about this one. They're coming off of their 59-7 win over VMI, and what we've seen from Georgia Tech this season is outside of their game against Florida State and Georgia State. Against teams with a pulse, Georgia Tech couldn't necessarily get past Syracuse on the road, but we're starting to see now that Syracuse team may actually be legit with Kyle McCord at quarterback. And while Louisville, they've had a couple of blowout wins to start the year, for me, wins over Austin Peay and Jacksonville State don't necessarily move the needle against anybody. I think they skew the numbers a little bit, but this is still a solid Georgia Tech offense that has experience with Haynes King. And more importantly for me, this is a Georgia Tech team that has plenty of experience and success in the underdog role. Going back to the start of the 2022 season, the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets are cashing almost a 75% clip in 19 games as an underdog, 14-5 against the number. So I'm going to take Georgia Tech plus the points here. I think Louisville wins, but I could see 31-24 here. So I'm going to take Georgia Tech and the points in this one. Now we head to Boone Pickens for another marquee matchup on Saturday's card as the Oklahoma State Cowboys taking on the Utah Utes. Oklahoma State laying 2 at home in this one. Total set at 52.5. This one's at 4 p.m. Eastern on Fox. And, I think it's very telling that this line is flipped through 0 from Utah State being favored on the road to now Oklahoma State being favored at home. I thought Oklahoma State was going to be favored at home regardless. And, now it's obviously about the health and status of Cam Rising. And, people always say, well, is he play? Is he not going to play? I don't even think Utah knows until we get closer to kickoff. And even then, I don't think Kyle Whittingham is going to say. But what does stand out to me here is that Oklahoma State usually performs their best at home. And I loved them as a home underdog because it's an Oklahoma State team that wins outright often as home underdogs, whether it's a short home dog or, even a bit of a sizable dog. But even though the line is flipped through 0, I still think Oklahoma State can get the job done. This is an Oklahoma State defense that's had some issues for sure, but, I still think this is one of the best passing offenses in the country. Alan Bowman, has been able to lead the charge for Oklahoma State. And even though Oklahoma State's run game hasn't been able to get going as of yet, you still have Ollie Gordon leading the ground attack for the Cowboys. And this is a different Utah defense than what it is when you face them at Rice Eccles. So for me, this game is all about Oklahoma State. This is the hardest part of their schedule if they're going to be a contender at the top of the Big 12 this season. They have this game against Utah and next week's road game against Kansas State. And that's the toughest part of their schedule. So if they can navigate through this, they're going to be in good shape. So I'm going to go with Oklahoma State. Either laying the 2 or taking them on the money line. It's your choice, but I'm going to go with the Cowboys in this one. Now we head to Tallahassee for an ACC matchup. It's still weird for me to say this, between Florida State and Cal. Florida State laying 2.5. Total set at 44.5. This one's going down at 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2. And at a certain point, when is enough going to be enough with Florida State? I've had enough personally. I mean, it seems 0-3 straight up and against the spread. DJU, you've got Mike Norvell coming out and saying, well, he still gives us a chance to win. And while some of the numbers haven't necessarily been terrible from a yardage perspective, he has still thrown for 53.3% last week against Memphis, 50% against Boston College, 70.4%, 19-27 for 193 yards against Georgia Tech, but still has done nothing to lead this team. He's missed wide receivers. He's had bad throws. DJU has. The fans are calling for a quarterback change, and it's just not coming. And I'll tell you what else isn't coming. My money isn't coming to the window to back Florida State. I'm going to take Cal here. This is a Cal team that is battle-tested. They beat Auburn on the road earlier this season. They've stifled the likes of San Diego State and UC Davis. This is a decent Cal defense. Fernando Mendoza is a decent quarterback option for Cal. And the most important thing for Cal, he just hasn't wrecked the car. He's done enough. He's just done his job, done his work, and that's the long and short of it. This Florida State team, they can't run the football. The Cal pass defense is solid. I think Florida State's heading to 0-4 here. I'm taking Cal plus the points, putting a little bit on the money line as well. Now we head to Norman for a matchup between the Oklahoma Sooners and the Tennessee Volunteers, Tennessee laying 6.5, total set at 56.5. This one's going down on ABC at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. And this is one of the marquee matchups of the week for sure. It's not easy to go into Oklahoma, and it's the first time under Brent Venables that the Oklahoma Sooners have been a home dog, but I think it's justified. Look, as much as I respect with this Oklahoma program, and I know the storied history of Oklahoma football, the reality is that Jackson Arnold hasn't necessarily been the revelation that we thought he was going to be for this Oklahoma offense. Sure, the Sooners beat up on Temple. Congrats. You came out, you barely got by Houston, and that game against Tulane was a lot closer than that final score would indicate. It was a 5-point game with 6 minutes to go before Oklahoma started to put the game out of reach after Tulane kind of shot themselves in the foot. But this is a Tennessee team that is rock solid. Nico Iamaleava has been able to step up and lead this Tennessee offense. Now, again, you could say the same argument for Tennessee, that they haven't necessarily played anybody either. They routed Kent State and Chattanooga, but they also routed NC State in their lone road game. And while some people may say, well, it's NC State, it's kind of, the ACC has been bad outside of maybe one or two teams this season. For me, it's still a road win by 41 points against an NC State team that still had their best quarterback playing in Grayson McCall. And we've seen, teams go out on the road and take care of business. Texas went into Ann Arbor, we mentioned earlier, and took care of Michigan. I think that the fact that now this line has dipped under a touchdown, it makes it easier for me to play on Tennessee here. I'm going to take Tennessee. I'm going to lay it 6.5. I just think this is a game where, it just boils down to Oklahoma not being able to keep up with Tennessee offensively in this one. So give me the Vols laying the 6.5. Now we're going to Oxford, where Ole Miss welcomes Georgia Southern to town. Ole Miss laying a boatload, 37. Total set at 67 points. The game's going down 7:45 p.m. Eastern on SEC Network. And while this is a decent Georgia Southern defense, we saw Georgia Southern hold down Nevada and they took care of business against South Carolina State. And they're 3-0 against the number this season. The fact of the matter is, I still can't forget this is a Georgia Southern team that gave up 56 points to Boise State, 6 rushing touchdowns. And while Georgia Southern's pass defense hasn't necessarily been the worst in the country, they haven't been very good. They're still outside the top 100 in pass defense. They're giving out their middle of the road in yards per completion, just inside the top 100 in yards per attempt. They can't stop anyone on the ground. They are bottom 5 in total defense. While this is the most explosive offense in the country in Ole Miss, Jackson Dart is on a Heisman warpath, and for me, I think this is just a lot to a little. I could easily see 63-10 here for Ole Miss. I think this is an Ole Miss team that's going to blow out everyone they play up until they get into the big boys and the meat of the SEC schedule. So give me Ole Miss here, laying the big number. Now we're heading to Folsom Field for an interesting matchup between Colorado and Baylor. This one's going down at 8 p.m. Eastern on Fox. Colorado laying 1.5. Total set at 50.5, and the line keeps dropping in favor of Baylor. It keeps shifting towards Baylor here. I think it's for good reason. Don't get me wrong. You look at these two teams just under the microscope. Really, Baylor, they haven't played a team that can pass the way that Colorado can. They played Utah, they played Air Force, and they played Tarleton State. Air Force obviously an option offense. Tarleton, who knows what that team really is. And, Utah, they held Utah to 122 passing yards in that game. Cam Rising only threw for 92 yards in that one, though. So maybe there's something to be said for Baylor and this pass defense. But what's more important for me is that, Colorado, sure, you beat up on Colorado State. You got the win over North Dakota State, although it was a lot closer than it should have been in your only home game this season. And you also got run off the field against Nebraska. And for me, this is still my concern for Colorado is that this team is just very one-dimensional. They're one of the worst rushing teams in the country. That's great. You can pass the ball. But this is a Baylor defense, that's going to hit you in the mouth. I think that this is going to be an interesting, litmus test to see where Colorado actually is. I think that Baylor has a shot to win this one outright. I think DeQuan Finn, just not a Power 4 conference quarterback. They're switching the Bears are to Sawyer Robertson. I think that is the better move. And I think, Robertson can have some success against this Colorado defense that at times has been susceptible. They're below, country average. They're below the average in FBS in terms of rush defense. The pass defense hasn't been very good, even though you got Travis Hunter out there. So I'm going to take Baylor plus the 1.5, a little bit on the money line. For me, this is going to be a prove-it spot for Colorado to see if they can hang with the rigors of Big 12 play. So I'm going to go with Baylor plus the 1.5 on the money line here. And our final game that we're going to talk about comes to us from this ACC Big 10 matchup between Boston College and Michigan State. This one's going down at 8 p.m. Eastern on ACC Network. Boston College laying 6.5, total set at 45.5. And this is an interesting matchup because you have two teams that have come in, strong to start the year. Michigan State 3-0 straight up. Boston College 2-1 straight up, but 3-0 against the spread, and almost beat Missouri outright last week. And if you've been following the breakdown, if you've been following me, with these college football videos here at Pick Dawgz, I am very high on that Missouri team. So I'm starting to think that maybe, Boston College is a team we got to keep an eye on. Now, granted, Boston College, you kind of got to take the good with the bad. They did rush for less than 2 yards per carry against Missouri, but they found a way to keep themselves in that game. They found a way to do it defensively. And Thomas Castellanos, man, he is a gamer, and I think that he's going to be able to take down Michigan State here. Michigan State, yes, this is a solid Michigan State defense. When you look at their numbers, they have fantastic numbers on the season defensively. I mean, look at this Michigan State defense. They're top 15 in total defense, top 10 in yards per carry, top 40 against the pass. But you played FAU in a game that you probably should have won handily. You're up 16-0 and let FAU come back into it. And Cam Fancher was terrible in that game. You beat Maryland on the road. Kudos to you for that one. But maybe I don't know if Maryland's as good as that they have been in past seasons. And you shut out Prairie View A&M. Boston College, I think, is going to be an improved team under Bill O'Brien this season. And I think that this is going to be a Boston College team that I think you really, really have to keep an eye on. So give me Boston College in this one, laying the 6.5. I think they get the job done in this one. I'm going to take the Eagles. That's it. That's your college football breakdown for week 4 going down on Saturday, September 21st. Again, if you like this content, make sure you smash that thumbs up, subscribe to our channel. Appreciate all the love and support we've gotten here at Pick Dawgz over the years. I appreciate you guys taking time out of your day to tune into the breakdowns. I can put you on some college football winners for the weekend. Again, make sure that you check out our betting tools at Pick Dawgz. They're some of the best betting tools in the business. Tools that you want to make sure that you have in your back pocket when you're making your best bets for the day's action. And again, if you're looking for my best bets, head to pickdawgz.com and click the Premium Picks tab at the top of the page. Thanks for watching. See you guys soon.